Picture this moment, if you will. You're standing on the observation deck of humanity's greatest space station, watching the stars disappear. Not exploding in brilliant supernovas, not collapsing into the hungry maw of black holes. Simply ceasing to exist, as if they had never been there at all. This is the story of the day humanity looked into the void between realities and made a choice that would echo across infinite universes. It's not a tale of conquest or glory. It's the story of survival, of a species that refused to go quietly into that cosmic night. By the time I finish telling you this story, you'll understand why the beings we left behind still whisper our name in the darkness between stars. You'll know why sometimes the greatest act of courage isn't standing your ground, it's knowing when to leap into the unknown. This is the story of Project Exodus. The story of Dr. Elena Vasquez and her desperate search for her missing daughter. And the story of how humanity became refugees in our own cosmos, only to discover we were destined for something far greater. The year was 2387, and humanity had been part of the Galactic Confederation for nearly 2 centuries. We weren't the strongest species in the galaxy. That honor belonged to the Draconian Empire with their planet-cracking dreadnoughts. We weren't the smartest. The Altarians had been manipulating quantum mechanics while we were still discovering fire. But we had earned our place at the galactic table through something uniquely human, the absolute refusal to accept that anything was impossible. Dr. Marcus Chen discovered it first. The chief scientist at the Kepler Deep Space Observatory, a man who had spent 30 years cataloging the birth and death of stars, found himself staring at data that made no sense whatsoever. I want you to imagine Marcus in that moment. Picture him in his sterile white laboratory, surrounded by holographic displays showing the electromagnetic spectrum of distant galaxies. He's run the calculations 17 times, checked every instrument, questioned every assumption. The data remain unchanged. Entire star systems were vanishing from existence. Not dying, not exploding, vanishing as if someone had reached into the cosmic database and hit the delete key. "It's impossible," Marcus whispered to his empty lab, his voice echoing off the metal walls. But the evidence was undeniable. The Kepler 442 system, a red dwarf star with 3 planets, one of which had shown signs of primitive life, had simply stopped existing. The light from that star had traveled for 1,200 years to reach Earth. Humanity had been observing it for decades, and now? Nothing, not even the faintest trace in the cosmic background radiation. When Marcus presented his findings to the Confederation Science Council, the reaction was predictably skeptical. The Centauri delegate, a being whose species had mastered interstellar travel before humans had invented the wheel, dismissed the report with a wave of his crystalline appendage. "Instrument malfunction," he declared. "No known force in the universe can simply erase matter from existence." But then Harmony of Distant Suns spoke. The Zephyrians were old. Not as old as some species, but old enough to remember things that others had forgotten. Their bodies were living crystals that resonated with cosmic frequencies, and when Harmony spoke, their entire form dimmed to the color of deep space. "The Void Devourers," they whispered, and the temperature in the council chamber seemed to drop 10 degrees. "We thought they were myth, stories told to frighten young ones who ventured too far from the light of home stars." The silence that followed was the kind that precedes either revelation or catastrophe. In this case, it was both. The Zephyrian archives were kept in the deepest vaults of their homeworld, protected by quantum encryption and religious taboo. For 67 million years, these records had remained sealed, their contents known only to the highest echelons of Zephyrian society. Let me tell you what those archives contained. They spoke of entities that existed in the spaces between realities, Not in our universe, but in the gaps between universes. These beings fed on something more fundamental than matter or energy. They consumed the very concept of existence itself. When the Void Devourers stirred, entire civilizations would simply stop. Not just their bodies, not just their worlds, but their entire history. Every record, every memory, every trace that they had ever existed would be erased from the cosmic timeline. But the archives also spoke of hope, of a few desperate species who had discovered a way to slip between the cracks of reality itself, fleeing into parallel dimensions where the Void Devourers couldn't follow. The technology was called the Dimensional Fold Drive, and according to the Zephyrian records, it had never been successfully replicated. While the Confederation's greatest minds debated evacuation strategies and defensive measures, Dr. Elena Vasquez was fighting a more personal battle. Her daughter, Maria, had been part of a deep space research mission investigating the edge phenomena when the first stars began disappearing. The UES Magellan had vanished 3 months ago, along with its crew of 47 scientists and explorers. The official report listed them as missing, presumed lost, but Elena refused to accept that verdict. Let me tell you about Maria Vasquez. 26 years old, brilliant xenobiologist, and according to everyone who knew her, the kind of person who would try to have a conversation with a supernova if she thought it might be sentient. She had volunteered for the deep space mission specifically because it was dangerous. "Someone has to be first, Mom," she had told Elena before departing. "Might as well be someone who's too stubborn to die." Those words would prove more prophetic than either of them could have imagined. The last transmission from the Magellan had been unusual. Instead of the standard scientific reports, it was Maria's voice, speaking in a language that the translation computers couldn't identify. But Elena knew her daughter's voice better than her own heartbeat, and she could hear something in those alien syllables that the machines missed. While other species began preparing for evacuation to distant galaxies, journeys that would take millions of years, even with their fastest ships, humanity did what humanity always did when faced with the impossible. We got to work. Elena was appointed head of Project Exodus, humanity's crash program to develop functional dimensional fold technology. She threw herself into the research with the kind of focused intensity that made her colleagues worry about her health and her sanity. 18-hour days became the norm. She slept in her laboratory, ate at her workstation, and spoke to no one except to bark orders or demand more resources. Her team watched her with a mixture of admiration and concern as she pushed herself beyond all reasonable limits. But Elena wasn't just trying to save humanity. She was trying to save her daughter, and that personal stake would make all the difference. 3 weeks into Project Exodus, Elena made a discovery that changed everything. She was analyzing the quantum resonance patterns in Maria's final transmission for the 100th time, searching for any clue about what had happened to the Magellan. The Zephyrian archives provided the theoretical framework for dimensional fold technology, but they were missing crucial implementation details. And then she found it. Hidden in the tonal variations of Maria's voice, encoded in the mathematical precision of her alien syllables, were equations. Not just any equations, complete dimensional fold calculations that actually worked. "James?" Elena called to her assistant, Dr. James Park, her voice shaking with exhaustion and excitement. "Look at this. She's not just speaking in an unknown language, she's teaching us how to build the drive." Working around the clock, Elena's team decoded the hidden message. What they found was more than just technical specifications. Embedded deeper in the transmission was a personal message from Maria to her mother. "Mom, if you're hearing this, then the Void Devourers have reached our reality. I'm alive, but I'm not in our universe anymore. The fold drive works, but it's not what we thought. We're not just escaping to another dimension. We're joining something bigger." There are others here, Mom. Survivors from thousands of realities, all fleeing the same enemy. And they've been waiting for us. They've been preparing for this moment for longer than our species has existed. The multiverse isn't empty, Mom. It's full of refugees just like us. And together, we're building something that the Void Devourers can never touch. Elena stared at the decoded message for a full minute before she started laughing. Not the laugh of someone who had lost their mind, but the laugh of someone who had just realized that the impossible was merely improbable. "James," she said, turning to her assistant with tears streaming down her face, "we're not just building an escape route. We're building a bridge to the greatest refugee camp in the multiverse." But even as hope bloomed in Elena's heart, the situation in the galaxy continued to deteriorate. The Void Devourers weren't consuming stars randomly. They were following a pattern, working their way inward from the galactic rim in a spiral that would eventually reach the core worlds. The Confederation's best military minds calculated that they had perhaps 6 months before the wave of non-existence reached Earth. Other species began their own desperate preparations. The Altarians attempted to build reality anchors, devices that would theoretically prevent the Void Devourers from erasing their worlds. The Centauri Collective tried to hide their entire star system in a pocket dimension. The proud Draconian Empire began construction of generation ships that could carry their entire population to the Andromeda Galaxy. None of it worked. The reality anchors failed spectacularly, creating quantum storms that destroyed 3 Altarian colonies before the Void Devourers even arrived. The Centauri pocket dimension collapsed, taking their home system with it, and the Draconian generation ships discovered that you can't outrun something that erases the very concept of distance. As reports of failed evacuation attempts poured in, the pressure on Elena's team intensified. They weren't just humanity's last hope. They were the galaxy's last hope. The dimensional fold drive was theoretically sound, but it had never been tested on anything larger than a quantum particle. Scaling it up to transport entire ships, let alone populations, required solving engineering problems that pushed the boundaries of known physics. "We're essentially trying to convince reality that we don't exist," Elena explained to the Confederation Council, "and then slip through the cracks while it's not looking." The first test was conducted on a small probe containing a quantum beacon. The theory was elegant in its simplicity. If the probe successfully transitioned to another reality, the beacon would send a signal back through the dimensional barrier, and the probe vanished. The quantum signature disappeared from all sensors. For 3 agonizing hours, there was nothing but silence and the steady hum of monitoring equipment. Then the beacon activated, but the signal wasn't coming from another dimension. It was coming from the same location where the probe had vanished, but the quantum signature was different, older, as if the probe had been sitting there for years instead of hours. "Time moves differently between realities," Elena realized, her voice barely above a whisper. "Maria has been gone for 3 months in our timeline, but she might have been working on this for years in hers." As Elena's team analyzed the probe's data, they made a discovery that changed their understanding of the entire situation. The dimensional fold drive didn't just allow travel between realities, it allowed communication with them. And Maria had been trying to contact them for much longer than anyone had realized. Hidden in the quantum static that permeated the galaxy, Elena found dozens of messages from her daughter. Not just the one they had decoded, but an entire conversation spanning subjective years. Maria had been documenting her experiences in the multiverse, sending back everything she learned about the Void Devourers and the civilizations that had fled them. The truth was both terrifying and hopeful. The Void Devourers weren't just random destroyers. They were part of a cosmic cycle, a universal reset that occurred every few billion years. But the multiverse was vast, and there were realities where the cycle had already passed. where survivors from countless universes had built new civilizations. "It's not just an escape," Elena whispered as she read Maria's latest message. "It's a graduation. The species that survive the Void Devourers don't just flee to another reality. They become part of something greater. A multiversal civilization that spans infinite realities." But there was a catch. The dimensional fold drive could only be activated once per reality. Once a universe began the transition, the barriers between dimensions would collapse, making further travel impossible. They would have one chance, one shot to save not just humanity, but every species willing to take the leap into the unknown. The Confederation Council faced an impossible choice. They could attempt Elena's dimensional fold transition, risking the complete destruction of their reality if it failed, or they could face certain extinction at the hands of the Void Devourers. The debate raged for days in the Great Council chambers of Nexus Prime. Representatives from over 1,500 species argued, pleaded, and threatened as they grappled with a decision that would determine the fate of galactic civilization. Some species, like the ancient ethereals, argued that extinction was preferable to the unknown. "We have existed in this reality for millions of years," their representative intoned, their voice like wind through crystal caves. "To abandon it now would be to abandon everything we are." Others, particularly the younger species, were eager to attempt the transition. The Terran Alliance, the Proxima Collective, and the New Geneva Republic all voted to support Elena's project. But it was the Zephyrians who cast the deciding vote. Harmony of distant suns stood before the council, their crystalline form now pulsing with a strange, determined light. "The archives speak of those who chose extinction over exile," they said, their voice resonating through the chamber. "They are remembered only as cautionary tales, but they also speak of those who dared to step into the unknown. They became legends." The vote was close. 847 species in favor, 623 opposed, and 234 abstaining. But it was enough. Project Exodus was approved. Building a dimensional fold drive large enough to transport entire star systems required resources on a scale never before attempted. Every species in the Confederation contributed what they could. The Altarians provided quantum processors the size of small moons. The Draconians offered their most advanced shipyards, and the Centauri Collective shared their expertise in large-scale engineering. Humanity's contribution was typically human. We provided the stubbornness to make it work. Elena's team worked around the clock, solving problems that shouldn't have had solutions. They built quantum computers that could process the mathematics of infinite realities, constructed reality anchors that could hold dimensional barriers stable, and created navigation systems that could plot courses through parallel universes. But the most crucial component was something that couldn't be built: trust. The dimensional fold drive required every participating species to synchronize their quantum signatures. One species refusing to participate, one ship trying to stay behind, would cause a cascade failure that would destroy the entire project. "We're not just asking them to trust our technology," Elena explained to the project coordinators during one of their daily briefings. "We're asking them to trust each other, to believe that we're all in this together." As construction continued, the Void Devourers drew closer. The wave of non-existence had consumed nearly a third of the galaxy, and the rate of destruction was accelerating. Refugee fleets from the Outer Rim brought horrifying reports. The Void Devourers weren't just erasing matter. They were erasing history. Civilizations that had existed for millions of years were being retroactively removed from the timeline, as if they had never existed at all. "It's not death," reported Captain Sarah Chen of the UES Horizon, one of the few ships to escape a Void Devourer encounter. Her voice was hollow, haunted by what she had witnessed. "Death leaves something behind. Memories, records, graves. This is nothing, complete and absolute nothing." The psychological impact on the Confederation was devastating. How do you fight an enemy that doesn't just kill you, but makes it so you never existed in the first place? Some species began to crack under the pressure. The ethereals withdrew from the project entirely, choosing to face extinction in their home systems rather than risk the unknown. The Draconian Empire split into factions, with some supporting the Exodus and others declaring it cowardice. But humanity did what we always do when faced with impossible odds. We got angry. You want to know what makes humans different from other species? It's not our technology. The Altarians had us beat there. It's not our intelligence. The ethereals had been contemplating the nature of existence since before our sun was born. And it's not our physical capabilities. Half the species in the galaxy could bench press a small moon. What makes humans different is our absolute refusal to go quietly into the night. When the Void Devourers threatened to erase us from existence, humanity's response wasn't fear or despair. It was rage. They want to make it like we never existed, Elena said during one of her team meetings, her voice shaking with fury. Then we'll make sure we exist so hard, in so many realities, that they'll never be able to erase us all. The human contribution to Project Exodus wasn't just technical. It was philosophical. While other species saw the dimensional fold as an escape, humans saw it as an invasion. We weren't fleeing to another reality. We were conquering it. This shift in perspective changed everything. Instead of building a single fold drive to transport the Confederation to one alternate reality, Elena's team began designing a network of drives that would scatter humanity and our allies across thousands of parallel universes. If we're going to be refugees, Elena declared to her assembled team, then we're going to be the most successful refugees in the history of the multiverse. But as the full drive neared completion, Elena received another message from Maria. This one was different, urgent, desperate, and filled with a warning that chilled her to the bone. Mom, you need to listen carefully. The multiverse isn't empty. There are things here. Things that have been waiting for new realities to open up. The Void Devourers aren't the only threat. When you activate the fold drive, you're going to attract attention from entities that make the Void Devourers look like a minor inconvenience. But there's hope. The survivors from other realities have been preparing for this. They've built defenses, created safe zones, established protocols for integrating new refugees. You won't be alone. But you need to be ready for what's coming. Elena stared at the decoded message, her mind racing. They had solved the problem of escaping the Void Devourers, but they were about to face an entirely new set of challenges. James, she called to her assistant. We need to modify the fold drive. We're not just building an escape route anymore. We're building a fortress. With less than a month before the Void Devourers reached the core worlds, the Confederation made its final preparations for the Great Exodus. Every participating species contributed ships, personnel, and resources to the massive undertaking. The fold drive itself was a marvel of multiversal engineering. Built around a network of quantum processors that spanned multiple star systems, it could theoretically transport the entire Confederation to parallel realities in a matter of hours. But theory and practice were two very different things. We get one shot at this, Elena reminded the assembled fleet commanders during their final briefing. If the fold drive fails, if the quantum synchronization breaks down, if even one ship tries to stay behind, we all die. Not just die, we cease to have ever existed. The weight of that responsibility was crushing. Billions of lives, thousands of species, the entire recorded history of galactic civilization, all of it depended on a technology that had never been tested on this scale. But as Elena looked out at the assembled fleet, over 1 million ships from across the galaxy, all united in their determination to survive, she felt something she hadn't experienced in months. Hope. The day of the Great Exodus dawned clear and cold on Earth. Elena stood in the primary control center, surrounded by representatives from every participating species. The quantum processors hummed with barely contained energy, and the fold drive's reality anchors glowed with an otherworldly light. "All ships report ready," announced Fleet Admiral Zhang, humanity's senior military commander. His voice was steady, professional, but Elena could hear the underlying tension. Around her, the control center buzzed with activity as technicians made final adjustments and species representatives confirmed their fleet's readiness. Zephyrian Fleet synchronized, reported Harmony of Distant Suns, their crystalline form now blazing with determination. Alterian quantum processors online, added the Alterian representative. Draconian battle groups in position, growled General Thax, speaking for the faction of his people who had chosen exodus over extinction. One by one, every participating species confirmed their readiness. Nearly 900 civilizations, representing trillions of lives, all betting their existence on humanity's desperate gamble. Void Devourer wave detected at the galactic rim, reported the sensor operator, her voice tight with controlled fear. Estimated time to core worlds, 6 hours. Elena closed her eyes briefly, thinking of Maria somewhere in the multiverse, waiting for them. When she opened them again, her voice was steady and clear. Initiate dimensional fold sequence. What happened next defied every law of physics that the Confederation had ever discovered. Reality itself began to bend and twist as the fold drive activated, creating tears in the fabric of space-time that revealed glimpses of infinite parallel universes. The first ships to enter the fold were the human vessels, led by Elena's own command ship, the UES Prometheus. As they passed through the dimensional barrier, the crews experienced something indescribable. A moment of existing in all realities simultaneously, of seeing every possible version of themselves across infinite universes. Transition successful, reported Captain Morrison from the lead ship, his voice filled with wonder and disbelief. We're somewhere else. The stars are different, but we're detecting familiar quantum signatures. I think we made it. But the transition wasn't without cost. As more ships passed through the fold, the dimensional barriers began to destabilize. The carefully calculated quantum synchronization started to break down, and several smaller vessels were lost in the chaos between realities. "We're losing cohesion," Elena's chief engineer reported, panic creeping into his voice. "The fold is collapsing faster than projected. We need to accelerate the transition." Elena made a decision that would haunt her for the rest of her life. "All ships, emergency transit, full power to the fold drive. We're bringing everyone through now." The emergency transit worked, but at a terrible cost. The massive energy surge required to transport the entire Confederation fleet simultaneously overloaded the fold drive's quantum processors. The reality anchors failed one by one, and the dimensional barriers began to collapse. In the chaos, Elena received one final message from Maria. "Mom, the fold is destabilizing. You need to get out now. The barriers are collapsing, and if you don't escape soon, you'll be trapped between realities forever." But Elena looked around the control center at the species representatives who had trusted humanity with their lives, at the technicians still working desperately to maintain the fold, at the millions of ships still waiting to transit. She made her choice. "Continue the evacuation," she ordered. "All ships through the fold. That's an order." "Elena, we need to go," Dr. Park urged, his voice breaking. "The control center is in the last wave. If we don't leave now, then we don't leave," Elena said simply. "Someone has to maintain the fold until everyone is through. Someone has to make sure the door stays open." As the last ships passed through the dimensional fold, Elena and her team worked frantically to keep the barriers stable. The quantum processors were failing one by one, and the reality anchors were burning out from the strain. "Fold integrity at 12% and falling," reported the chief engineer. We have maybe 2 minutes before complete collapse." Elena looked at her team. Humans, Zephians, Altarians, and others who had volunteered to stay behind and ensure the evacuation's success. They all knew what this meant. They all knew they weren't going home. "It's been an honor," she said simply. But then, just as the fold began its final collapse, something impossible happened. The dimensional barriers stabilized, held in place by an external force. Through the failing quantum processors, Elena heard a familiar voice. "Mom, I told you I'd find a way to bring you home." Maria's ship, the UES Magellan, materialized in the control center's docking bay. But it wasn't the same ship that had left months ago. It had been modified with technology that Elena didn't recognize, equipped with reality anchors that could stabilize dimensional folds from the outside. "The survivors taught me how to build this," Maria explained as she helped evacuate the control center. "They've been preparing for refugee fleets for millions of years. They knew someone would eventually need a rescue." As Elena's team boarded the Magellan, the dimensional fold finally collapsed behind them. The barriers between realities sealed shut, cutting off their home universe forever. But they had made it. The entire Confederation fleet, nearly 1 billion ships carrying trillions of lives, had successfully transitioned to a new reality. Elena embraced her daughter for the first time in subjective years, tears streaming down both their faces. "I knew you were alive," Elena whispered. "I knew you'd find a way." "I had help," Maria replied, gesturing to the modified ship around them. "Mom, there's so much I need to show you. The multiverse is incredible." The reality that the Confederation had fled to was unlike anything they had ever imagined. It was a nexus point where survivors from thousands of universes had gathered, creating a multiversal civilization that spanned infinite realities. The beings that Maria had encountered, the ones who had taught her to modify the Magellan, were themselves refugees from realities consumed by the Void Devourers. Some had fled cosmic entropy, others had escaped universal heat death, and still others had run from threats that the Confederation couldn't even comprehend. But they had all found something in the multiverse that they had lost in their home realities: hope. "Every universe that falls to the Void Devourers makes the survivors stronger," explained Keeper Zahn, an entity that had once been part of a hive mind spanning an entire galaxy. "We learn from each reality's knowledge, we adapt their technologies, and we prepare for the next wave of refugees." The Confederation's arrival was celebrated throughout the multiversal civilization. Their dimensional fold technology, refined through desperation and powered by human stubbornness, was a breakthrough that would help future refugee fleets escape their dying realities. In the months that followed, humanity found its place in the multiversal civilization. Our talent for adaptation, our refusal to accept defeat, and our ability to innovate under pressure made us natural leaders in the ongoing effort to rescue survivors from doomed realities. Elena was appointed to the Multiversal Refugee Council, where she helped coordinate rescue missions for civilizations facing extinction. Her dimensional fold technology became the standard for evacuation operations, saving countless species from the Void Devourers and other cosmic threats. But perhaps more importantly, humanity brought something to the multiversal civilization that had been missing: the belief that extinction wasn't inevitable. "Other species see the Void Devourers as a force of nature," Elena explained to the Council during one of their sessions, "something to be endured or fled from. But humans see them as a problem to be solved, and we don't give up on problems." The story of the Great Exodus didn't end with humanity's escape from the Void Devourers. It was just the beginning of a larger mission to ensure that no civilization would ever face extinction alone again. Under Elena's leadership, the Multiversal Refugee Council established monitoring stations throughout the dimensional barriers, watching for signs of cosmic threats in parallel realities. When they detected civilizations in danger, They sent rescue fleets equipped with dimensional fold drives to evacuate the survivors. Maria, now a seasoned multiversal explorer, led many of these rescue missions. She had inherited her mother's determination and her species' refusal to abandon those in need. "Every reality we save is a victory against the void," Maria said during one of her mission briefings. "Every civilization we rescue is proof that extinction isn't the end of the story. The Great Exodus changed humanity forever. We went from being a single species on a single world to being part of a multiversal civilization that spanned infinite realities. We learned that the universe was far stranger and more dangerous than we had ever imagined. But we also learned that we were far more resilient than we had ever dared to hope. The Void Devourers still exist, still consume realities, still threaten civilizations across the multiverse, but they no longer represent inevitable extinction. Thanks to the dimensional fold technology developed during humanity's darkest hour, species facing cosmic threats now have an escape route. And at every refugee camp, at every evacuation site, at every dimensional fold station throughout the multiverse, there's a human there to help. Because that's what we do. When faced with the impossible, we don't give up. We adapt, we innovate, and we find a way. The void may be vast and hungry, but humanity is stubborn and creative. And in the end, stubbornness and creativity beat cosmic horror every single time. And there you have it. The story of how humanity fled the void and found something greater in the multiverse. It's a reminder that sometimes the greatest victories come, not from standing and fighting, but from knowing when to run towards something better. But I want to hear from you. This story raises some profound questions about choice, sacrifice, and what it means to be human in the face of cosmic horror. Here's what I want you to think about. If you were in Elena's position, would you have made the same choice? Would you have stayed behind to ensure everyone else's escape, knowing it might mean never seeing your daughter again? Or would you have found another way? And here's an even deeper question. Do you think humanity's response to the Void Devourers, turning an escape into an invasion, refusing to simply flee but instead building a multiversal civilization, says something fundamental about our species? Are we really that different from other intelligent life? Or is our stubbornness just another survival trait? I love reading your thoughts on these stories. Your comments often give me ideas for future audiobooks, and your perspectives help me understand how these tales resonate with different people. So don't be shy, let me know what you think about humanity's leap into the multiverse. If you enjoyed this story, please take a moment to like this video. It really helps the channel grow and lets me know that you want to hear more stories like this. And if you're new here, consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell. I release new science fiction audiobooks every week, and trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Speaking of what's coming next, I've been working on a story about what happened to the civilizations that chose to stay behind and fight the Void Devourers. Let's just say that humanity's stubbornness isn't the only thing that can surprise cosmic horrors. If you want to hear that story, let me know in the comments. Until next time, remember, the universe may be vast and dangerous, but human ingenuity is vaster and more dangerous. We don't just survive the impossible, we make it look easy. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next story.